Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today we've got a cool little video for you entitled Designing Your Own City of Sigmar. For those of you who don't know, we put a post up on the community section of our YouTube channel not too long ago asking people what army they'd like to see us start working on next once we've got our Stormcast army painted up, and it looks like a clear winner is going to be a Living City of Sigmar army. This army is going to focus a lot on all the units that make Cities of Sigmar cool, especially those that make the Living City a unique sort of army. We're going to be focusing around building an army around the battalion within the army. This means it's going to contain a lot of Wanderer or Wood Elf units within the army. What we thought we'd do with this is we thought we might actually design some narrative behind this, and for that we're going to use Warhammer Community's Designing Your Own Free City article. For those of you who haven't seen, or when this came out, maybe a long time ago now for some of you, might not have been in the game yet. So Warhammer Community actually posted an article that was really cool, and you can find it simply by searching just Warhammer Community Free City Generator, Free City Creator, etc. We will post a link down in the description of the video to this article from Warhammer Community as well, but it talks about designing your own free city and gives you a couple of cool charts you can roll on and do a whole bunch of stuff with. And so we're going to take a crack at that, and we're going to build up some narrative for this free city right now that's going to focus on this city that we're going to use Living City rules for. So the things to remember, I guess, going forward in the video is that we're building a city to represent the Living City. This doesn't necessarily mean, though, that it has to be from, say, Gyran, the Realm of Life. We can find ways to bend around and work around that lore and have an ambushing city that uses the Living City rules and keeps us with that Wanderer heavy battalion and that Wanderer heavy focus within the army, but we can also sort of put it wherever we want in the realms. But where does designing your own free city come into this? Well, what we hope by this video is we're going to run through all the different parts we do and how we think about all the different situations that arise from all these things, and hopefully give you an idea on how you can create some lore for your own City of Sigmar using this particular article by Warhammer Community. So let's get cracking into it. Let's get designing your own free city, and in particular for us, let's get designing our City of Sigmar that you've all voted on. So let's get started. The first thing that Warhammer Community's article runs you through is name generation. You roll 2d66, and for those who don't know what a d66 is, it's where you roll 2d6, one of them will be the first number and the second one will be the second number. You roll this twice and you add the two parts together and then give you a name. For me, I think a good way of doing this is actually rolling this 3 times and getting 3 set sort of ideas on each one of the 2 charts they supply and combining them to try and get a name that sounds cool out of those ones, and also a name that you think you can work with. Now, the cool things a name can help you do is it can set the location of your city. If the name's got something like, say, Phoenix in its name, then maybe it's starting to look at maybe it's somewhere in the realm of fire or the realm of light where the Phoenix lives or something like that. If it's got something like water in its name, maybe it's near a river or an ocean, or maybe it's got crag in its name, which makes it sound like it's on top of a mountain or a cliff face potentially. The name can also give context to focal points, which we'll get to roll on later in a different chart, but it can help tell you about all the things that are in it. Maybe there's a particular observatory that has lots of wizards in it, and your name has something like flame in the name of your free city. So this means maybe they're all fire mages that live in that particular observatory, and the fire mages work alongside the free city. And lastly, it can help depict the residents of your free city. The residents will help get depicted mainly because by the name of what's in the city. So say you roll up elves live in your city, and then you've rolled up Phoenix as well. Maybe they are Phoenix Temple elves that live inside your city. There's a lot of different things you can work with and do with all these different things, and the name can help sort of set the base ground foundations of your ideas on where you want to go with it. By getting this base sort of idea, you can help build upon this later. Next, we'll move on to the second part that it runs you through. Now that we've got the basic name of our city and we've sort of started to generate some ideas, we'll then go on to a D33, which is very similar to the D66 table, which is instead of this one you roll a D3 and add the 2 numbers together, rolling one for the first number and one for the second number, and you get something like 11, 12, and a whole bunch of different combinations of that. But the first one it gets you to roll on for the D33 is picking your realm. Now, it first of all tells you to pick either a realm. None of them are in Azir, obviously, because there's no cities besides Sigmar inside Azir. But it also gives you the option for a mobile city, which is pretty cool, and the idea of a twin city. For those that don't know what a twin city is effectively a city joined by a realm gate or some other means. So if you're looking for something like this in the lore that currently exists, you have Hammerhall, where it exists in both Akshi and Gairan, and it has this giant realm gate that joins two halves of the city together. Now, building a realm up and giving your city some life with this particular realm, it further pushes your ideas of the location where you might be. Say you've thought about a river now, maybe that river is very verdant and lush and fertile, and it can also help you build upon the setting and things you've put into your ideas already for your city, and gives your inhabitants, I guess, a demeanor more than anything. It's said that inhabitants that live in the realm of fire are much more hot-blooded and much more temperamental, while those that live in, say, the realm of shadows are much more secretive. You can then move on to size for your free city. Now, size is a great thing because it can give you the idea of importance and strength of your city. Now, what's interesting about this is it doesn't necessarily mean that big is good. Sometimes you might build a city that's only a small little hamlet, but maybe it's in a very important road, or maybe it's a watchtower that sits on a particular island that's got a realm gate on the island, and it's the only fortress part that actually protects this island because it's not big enough to house an entire city. There's lots of different things you can do with this, and I strongly suggest you actually roll on this table because small doesn't mean insignificant at all. Sometimes the smallest fortifications become the most vitally important. And lastly, you roll a d6 on a table to get your inhabitants. Now, you generate your inhabitants based on rolling d3 times or d3 plus 1 for villages or larger. So it depends on your size, depends on how many different races will live in your city. Now, this one, I think you can sort of choose who you want to live in your city. This one was one of the ones where I suggest rolling if you're interested, but it's not necessarily a thing you need to do. I think if you've got particular models you want to include, then just include those models and build your city around that. But you can roll up either humans, elves, Dwarden, Stormcast, Sylvaneth, or Seraphon in any combination, which is really cool. And there's some cool ways you can employ this in narrative gaming. And if you're trying to build out rules for your own free city, maybe you can simply do the 1 in 4 rule for those that aren't there. Though in match play, it's quite easily accessible to get a lot of these into your match play armies. Seraphon, I think, would be the hardest one to do. Anyway, getting your inhabitants, they give a face to your civilians. You've started building up that idea of what your setting and what your city's like. So now your inhabitants are getting fleshed out, and you can see that, oh, maybe I'm in the realm of Akshi, so those hot-blooded people in my city are actually Dwarden, and maybe, well, I'm in Akshi, so maybe they're actually Fire Slayers. Where if you were coming from, say, Chamon, maybe the Sylvaneth that are from your city in Chamon are actually much more harder bark. Maybe they've got this iron bark and they're actually like almost metallic tree people. Would be rather cool. You can also start building relationships between the different races within your free city as you do this, and I want to state to start with that not all of these need to be conflicting. Now, there are differences and conflicts obviously between races, and maybe those conflicts are because one race wants to do something and the other race doesn't like that, and it can be as simple as that. But maybe their conflicts don't necessarily come because they're trying to do two different things, but because they want to do the same thing but differently. And that's actually, I think, where the relationships between races become the most interesting and what actually pulls City of Sigmar together. It's not that the races have different opinions and want to do all these different things, it's that they generally want to do the same thing. The conflicts generally arise in City of Sigmar from races wanting to do the same thing but do it differently. And I think there's a lot of room to explore in all different ways you can do this as well. But that's definitely a personal favourite of mine on how I like to explore relationships between races. And so the last thing that the article gets you to roll on is the distinguishing features. So distinguishing features, you roll a d6 and it sort of gives you an idea on how many of these features you get. And how many features you get, I guess, generally determines how renowned your city is. Does it get 1? So it's just a little note in the side passage of many historians' books. Or does it actually get, the max amount where it gets a legendary location? It becomes a legendary location, rather. All these features can be a whole bunch of different things, but what they do is they give your city life. Now, what I mean by giving your city life is they give your city an identity. They give your city a meaning. And all these features can be used to sort of give all your previous ideas a proper setting and a proper reason to exist. Say maybe you've gotten all these different Seraphon in your city, and you've rolled up and you've gotten Seraphon within your city. Maybe it has this mysterious sort of temple just outside the city, or actually within the city walls, and is built upon this temple. And maybe the Seraphon live, to most people's knowledge, not existing underneath their city. Maybe they don't actually know the Seraphon live there, or maybe they live coexistingly with the Seraphon, who see the city on top of their temple as actually a protection from chaos and other insurgencies. Maybe you've got Sylvaneth within your city and it's built in the top of trees because you've got the Sylvaneth woods within your cities, and it's actually built high up in the trees as one of its distinguishing features. There's so much you can do with this. And as previously mentioned, maybe you've got Fire Slayers, so maybe there's an actual Fire Slayer lodge sitting underneath the city. All of these features here will give your city that little bit more life and meaning. And once you've got all these pieces together now, you can really start fleshing out and generating an idea. Well, and the question comes, what did we roll up for this? So this is a city that you're going to be seeing in maybe some narrative campaigns soon, but it's definitely going to be hitting the table very soon. And so let's have a little bit of a chat about it. This is going to determine how we paint up and how we build this Living City army, and does it fit with Living City? So to start with, we're going to call the city Seer's Veil. This is a combination of a couple of different things we rolled up, but I really like the idea. It gives me the sense of like it's this veil in the middle, cascaded around by mountains, and so it just sits in the middle of like this giant veil in the middle of all these mountains. I get this idea in my head of what it is going to be. Being Living City, hopefully we rolled up some Sylvaneth, which we did. I'll talk about them in a sec. But the idea is like this forest, this veil surrounded, and has spots of forest within the veil as well. This city sits in the realm of light as well. So this gives me an idea of like how we can have our troops coming out around and maybe using the surprising sort of ambush rules of Cities of Sigmar, in particular Living City, that sort of affect us, and how does our army work with those rules. Well, first of all, they're coming out of a forest, but maybe these forests actually emit a blinding light, and the army actually takes advantage of them and uses blinding light to enable them to move up and sneak up on their enemies. The city itself is a sprawling metropolis, so it is rather large, so I'm imagining the Vale getting rather massive, and maybe it's getting to the point where some of the parts of the city are actually climbing up the sides of the Vale as well, and even building onto the trees in particular parts of it as well. Inhabitants, we have Elves, Dwarden, and Sylvaneth. This for me is a great combination. We rolled up Sylvaneth, and I was going to put them in and substitute them for one if I didn't, because we want to take full advantage of those Living City parts. But we've got Elves and we've got Sylvaneth, that was cool. And rolling up Dwarden as the other one gives me an idea that maybe the Dwarden in this free city are the ones building underground or building up the side of the cliff face as well. It's a really cool idea. And then we rolled up our distinguishing features, and they sort of had this one common thing again about them. First of all, we rolled up the first four, which was a sealed and terrible vault. We had a sinister reputation, a lingering chaos catastrophe, and a monster's graveyard. These four, to me, all come to the same sort of conclusion in my mind, and maybe it's this giant chaotic monster that's sealed in a vault that has this terrible, magic's put upon it to seal this massive monster that's dead. Maybe it's only part of a monster or something that's been split up across the realms, and it has this sinister reputation because of what it's built upon. And maybe this monster is a chaos tainted monster. Maybe it's a chaos tainted god beast even, and that's why this lingering chaos catastrophe is not necessarily noticeable to many people, but it's just known, and it's this stain upon the city. We then have the Sylvaneth Woods, which, as I mentioned, maybe they flow down from the Vale, or maybe they're inside the actual Vale themselves, and it's the Sylvaneth now that live alongside the city with these just woods in the middle of this giant metropolis that lives within this Vale. And then we have a notorious Thieves Guild. This, for me, is sort of the crime aspect of the city. Maybe there's actually these thieves that go into this sealed and terrible vault through some unknown passages and take out the artifacts and begin stealing them and then selling them on some sort of black market. maybe that's the reason they're notorious, because they're actually dealing with something that's actually very dangerous and deadly, and maybe they're that close to being chaotic that that's why they're so notorious. They're not seen as something friendly to the city, but they are still a part of it. I've got my general ideas of the city, and you'll probably see on the channel me expanding upon this. I'll probably put out some lore videos talking about this city and building it up and getting ready for some narrative campaigns on the channel with this free city. But for now, that's the general idea I've got for the city. I'd love to know if you've used this, what you've rolled up, and what your free city is all about. Please do leave some comments down in the below how you think we can build upon this, what we've got, and how you've built your own free city with this as well. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to come chat with me and other members of our fine community, you can do so by following the link in the video down to our Discord server. You can come chat with all our fine community there. Also, while you're on YouTube, please do go check out my featured channel section, where there's a bunch of other fantastic Warhammer Age of Sigmar content creators with content ranging from battle reports, narrative, lore, to tactical analysis and tactical expertise. Lastly, a special shout out to everyone who supports the channel financially. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Philip Ward, Soren, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shot First, James Crowder, and Chaos Spawn. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so via many different means. We've got links to our Ko-fi, Patreon, and YouTube members, all of which help support the channel and keep us doing what we do here. Thank you all for watching once again. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well. And most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.